name is Zoya Chung, and today on Crash Course World History, we'll be talking about the Vikings, aka the fierce warriors of the sea. Scandinavia was present-day Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, which is why they were called Northmen or Norsemen. You could try saying that a few times. Now, class, how did the Viking race begin? Mrs. Chung, the Vikings were originally fishers and farmers because their homelands were rural and agricultural, but farmers had trouble trying to grow enough crops for all their people. Correct me from the past, so the raids began when the Viking leaders decided to just take whatever they wanted, similar to the Mongols. During the time before the Vikings, Rome had just fallen. In China, the Silk Roads were starting to emerge under the control of the 10 kingdoms. Many battles were commencing while the Vikings were making their raids. The Magyars and the Muslims were also making their mark in history by conquering important kingdoms, including Rome. After, they started to destroy Christian churches. Okay, enough of that. Let's talk about the Vikings.
The Vikings were the earliest recorded raid in the 790s, and they spread to northern Europe. The Vikings raided the monks and monasteries in Lindisfarne, which was the monastery famous for their knowledgeable monks and their extensive library. It marked the start of the Viking migration from Scandinavia. The Viking Age consisted of the Viking raiding cities near the coastline and monasteries. But soon, not even inland locations such as Kiev and Constantinople were safe. This led to an advancement in defense for some cities, including walled-in harbors, sea-facing stone walls, etc. All over Europe, cities lived in fear of the Vikings because no one was able to foresee their attacks. The Vikings were excellent sailors, shipbuilders, and navigators. These barbarians were able to make ships that were capable of withstanding heavy ocean waves and carrying as many as 100 warriors. These ships allowed the Vikings to approach a target quickly, so people had little time to prepare. Warriors were armed with swords, axes, spears, and shields as they left the ship to attack. They killed and captured anyone in their way and grabbed any precious items. People believed that the raids were to find new settlement. Scandinavia was a harsh region to live and survive in, so they wished to escape it, but the Vikings always ended up going back to their homeland with treasure slaves.
Oh, now it's time for the open letter. Ow! Oh, looky here. An open letter to Vikings. Yes, what a surprise. Dear Vikings, in my opinion, your raids and conquests were accompanied by a good number of atrocities that reflected the Vikings' rough character, but were also designed to intimidate their victims. Scary. You showed no special respect for Christian churches and monasteries, which is stupid because the church owned so much of the wealth in Western Europe at the time. Anyway, you guys were also great traders. As a result, you opened up trade routes, which helped start a revival of Europe's economy. This was one of the greatest impacts on their economy. Good job. From Leia Cho. Well, that was cute. Okay, so the next thing we're going to be talking about is the Viking myth. Let's go check out that secret compartment. Ow! Alright, the coolest thing about these myths was that they wore horned helmets, even though in reality the helmets were leather with metal frames. But I like the horns better. People also say that the Vikings were dirty, filthy, and all types of gross stuff, but evidence shows that they were actually very clean people. I thought Vikings were always out raiding and being in war and killing people, which reminds me of the Mongols. But the Mongols and the Vikings raided Europe. Ah, the Mongols. This gives me an excuse to talk about them some more. Vikings and Mongols are so alike. Mongols came from the east, Vikings came from the west. They were both nomads and unstoppable military forces. I could go on forever, but let's get back to the myths. So in reality, the Vikings only raided and did that stuff during Viking season, which wasn't that often. They were usually just hanging out on the farm with their families. They also had a big, strong, unified army. Wrong. They actually scattered out to conserve farmlands. I always imagined Vikings to be big and scary, but they were really pretty scrawny guys because of their scarce resources for farming. See you next time on Crash Course World History. Blah, blah, blah.